Good morning to all of you in the room and indeed the many millions watching on Facebook, I understand. It's a privilege to be here at Policy Exchange and following the footsteps of the great and the good. Indeed, it may well have been from this very podium that Michael Gove launched his leadership bid. I mean, it is possible that there are varying views within this room over the wisdom or otherwise of the United Kingdom leaving the European Union or indeed leaving the single market. And catastrophic scenarios of both are presented and then ridiculed. And in the words of the great Michael Gove, we get to the point of no one trusting experts anymore. Maybe that's the point of fake news, by the way. It's so that when there is something to be genuinely panicked by, the public have got panic fatigue and have become anaesthetised. And that is a very dangerous situation to find ourselves in. The self-harm of an extreme separation from Europe, beyond anything that the majority voted for, is a genuine threat. But let's be blunt, it is but a flesh wound compared to the indescribable threat of climate change to our country and to our economy. Again, you will find people who will ridicule the science, but it's time to impatiently shrug those people off and put them in the same bracket of those people who believe that we faked the moon landings, or indeed that Lord Lucan is still alive and well and is currently serving anonymously in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. A year ago, it seemed that the world had finally woken up to the dangers of pollution and rising temperatures. The US, China and Russia all followed the European Union's lead in agreeing that climate change is one of the gravest challenges facing humanity. We came to a consensus on the need to take the perils of climate change seriously. The debate was not on whether to, but on how fast and far to push towards a new clean economy. And the signing of the hugely significant Paris Agreement was the result. Countries across the globe had recognised that this was not just an environmental issue, but an economic and a security issue. They recognised the risk of doing nothing, the risk their economies of doing nothing. They saw that there was money to be made from investing in new technologies that will be vital in the future. And so they committed. But since then, much has, of course, changed. The consensus appears, in some corners at least, to be unravelling. Now we have a climate change denier in the White House, which provides a reason or an excuse for other countries to backslide a little. We have a Tory government now that went from hugging huskies to dismissing intelligent economic environmental policies as green crap, and a Labour Party that has no coherent vision for the environment, for industry or the economy. Amongst politicians there is apathy, and there are too many climate ignorers. Meanwhile, our world gets more polluted and future threats, not just to our world but to our economy, are being ignored. That has got to change. We cannot afford to go backwards. We must not throw away the economic opportunities before us. We must not squander the opportunity to be a global leader in innovation and exports to the world. The clean economy must not be left in a green box and associated only with earnest left-wing politics. And frankly, if we are going to build a new clean economy and to genuinely tackle climate change, then limiting ourselves to the anemic message of hair-shirted personal austerity is the surest way to make certain that we fail. If the only people who care about this agenda are, if you will forgive me, the kind of people who are in this room, we are in massive, massive trouble. We only build an active majority for a consensus on a new clean economy if we can inspire people to back it. So we must tell the story of a strong, clean economy which will allow Britain to prosper, will create jobs and will protect our future. For years, Britain has been ahead of the game, leading the way on renewables and sustainable business practices. We have some of the best examples of innovation and expertise. We are a world leader in offshore wind, generating 40% of the entire world's supply. We have the best sustainability expertise anywhere in the world. Under the coalition government, investment increased and the amount of renewable electricity that we generated tripled. We built a cross-party consensus formed around the groundbreaking Climate Change Act of 2008, which set ambitious targets and raised the level of ambition across Europe. We worked with business leaders to set in motion a long-term strategy for a strong, clean economy driven by doing the right thing for the world that we live in. Britain became the fastest growing economy, green economy in Europe, with a turnover of £46.2 billion, providing 238,000 British jobs. But just as things appeared to be really taking off, the rug has been pulled from underneath. The government has gone back on its commitments. It has failed to see the business opportunity of investing in low carbon technology. It has chosen an extreme separation from Europe, which can only damage the UK economy. The twin choices of an extreme separation from Europe, pulling out of the single market without a mandate to do so, and the dumping of the coalition's green agenda come from the same place. It is about choosing narrow dogma over intelligent pragmatism. The government, I'm afraid, are now much more likely to borrow ideas from the UKIP website than from sensible free market economic think tanks like Policy Exchange. And while the reflections from Paul Nuttall make very interesting reading, that is Paul Nuttall, the fourth man on the moon, indeed the original keyboard player in Kajagoogoo, apparently. Interesting all those revelations may be, it is no way to run a country. And now with the Prime Minister choosing to pander to President Trump, it hardly makes us any more optimistic that her next choices on climate change will be wisdom over transparent political short-termism. Now, we can no longer assume then that a consensus will lead us in the right direction. What happens in the next 5 years will be utterly crucial. And that's why I'm setting out today my vision for a Britain that is clean, innovative and prosperous. There is a huge opportunity before us that we need to take. The low carbon and no carbon economy will be underpinned and driven by industries which will be worth trillions globally in the next few decades. It is a new industrial revolution. We can do as the Victorians did and lead it, prosper from it and stand tall across the globe as a consequence, or we can look down our noses at it and be surpassed and relegated. It is an industry, a collection of industries, which will help create a strong economy from which we will all benefit in our pockets, as well as protecting our planet, our economy, from the devastating consequences of global warming. If we do not take this path, others will, and they will reap the benefits and not us. It is entirely down to political will. My vision, though, is not simply to turn back the clock and reverse the torrent of anti-green measures by this Conservative government. It is not simply to invest more and to hope for the best. We have got to have a much more ambitious approach than that. It is for Britain to become fully energy self-sufficient, no longer relying on the oil-rich Middle East or Russia or China. I want us to secure the future of our energy whilst doing the right thing for our planet. We are an island nation with fantastic clean resources, natural resources. We can harness the power of the seas and use it to power ourselves and export to the world. Our offshore wind has potential to supply a far greater share of our energy needs. We have the second largest tidal range on the planet, just behind Canada. But we're not making the full use of our seas. It is time to reclaim our maritime heritage and history and to use it to our advantage and to secure our place as the world leader in these technologies. We need to do with clean energy what the Victorians did with rail and infrastructure to create a radical programme of upfront investment which transforms the world that we inhabit. A collective patriotic endeavour to become energy self-sufficient, to write a chapter in Britain's history that will make future generations proud of us and keen to follow. The new clean economy will tip our way of living upside down. Our roofs will power our washing machines. Our cars will be charged at home. Our waste will make us money. Our homes will be warm without turning the heating on. Our energy will be British, it will be clean, and its production will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. It is the best for Britain. It is the best for our planet. Now, when I talk about self-sufficiency in energy, I do not mean that we should pull up the drawbridge, put Britain first at the cost of our international trade. I mean exactly the opposite. I want us to be on the front foot, exporting our technologies to other countries. I want us to be the world leader in a global marketplace, internationalist and interconnected, not at the mercy of fluctuating commodity prices, which push up bills and destabilise our economy. See, I am a patriot, and there are too many on the centre and the left who are squeamish about the language of patriotism, not me. My vision for our economic future is a patriotic one. It is for regeneration and jobs in every part of our country. It is for British design, engineering and exports. It is for investment in areas left behind by changing technologies. And it is for cheaper electricity bills that bring an end to fuel poverty across our nation. Because it is possible to be patriotic without being nationalistic. In fact, it is essential. I am not having short-sighted climate change deniers, isolationists, aggressive fake nostalgia merchants nicking my flag, appropriating what it is to be British. To be British is to look outward and to lead by example. Business as usual will mean our economy is left behind and our people are left behind. Business as usual will mean that other countries step into the space which is rightly ours and reap the economic benefits that should have been making us prosper instead. It will mean business as usual, higher electricity bills for consumers and less tax income from successful, clean businesses. It will also mean more global uncertainty. You see, as increasing amounts of land becomes either deluged or desiccated, the impact will be a human tragedy and the mass movement of tens of millions of people. To put it bluntly, those who fear the impact of migration should be utterly terrified witless of climate change. We have a small window of opportunity, and it is now. There is an urgency for action before it's too late, but there is a patriotic, self-interested, as well as long-sighted motive for choosing to act now. Yet, the Conservatives in government on their own now have made a deliberate choice to miss this opportunity, not out of apathy, but out of short-term political positioning. They have stopped new onshore wind, undermined solar, avoided tidal, and cut the renewable heat incentive. They have abandoned the excellent zero carbon homes policy put in place by Liberal Democrat Minister Andrew Sturrell in coalition. They have simply handpicked the technologies that they like, picking winners by prejudice, not reason. And that is not a market approach or a proper industrial strategy. That is a UKIP strategy. It's irrational. It's putting ideology before people's jobs. In the last 2 years alone, there have been 12,500 solar job losses just in the solar industry, caused by government's cuts. This would never have happened to a heavy carbon industry. They are not, as a Conservative government, now planning for the long term. They are sleepwalking their way through with a short-termist approach, while those in the industry look on in absolute staggered disbelief. Investor confidence has been totally undermined. Startups are struggling to scale up. There is no certainty for business whatsoever. This is a government blinkered by right-wing climate skeptics who put warped ideology before common sense, putting prejudice before the market. The recently published industrial strategy has a whole chapter in it on the green economy, but fails to put forward one single substantive proposal on how to capitalise on the huge business opportunities around renewables. The government says they care about bringing down consumer bills, but they have left out the cheapest forms of clean energy, solar and onshore wind. Theresa May has promised to stand up for every corner of Britain. But from the Western Isles to Swansea Bay, she is causing uncertainty among clean businesses and holding back jobs and growth. She is hiking up business rates on solar panels by 8 times, which will damage, of course, the solar industry even further in the United Kingdom. She's looking back towards fossil fuels and backwards in her planning, giving the green light to fracking instead of looking to the future. And she's continued with a disastrous plan to sell off the Green Investment Bank just as it was getting established. Now, when Ed Davey and before him Chris Huhne ran the Department for Energy and Climate Change, the wrestling match was between us and the Treasury, and we usually won. Now it's between Greg Clark and Number 10. A nice guy though he is, he loses every single day. Theresa May is, by empirical evidence, a climate ignorer and has a lot to answer for. The cheap energy future is a low carbon and no carbon one. Failing to invest now will cost us all more in the future, and bills will be comparably higher as a result. So my role as leader of an opposition party, and the only opposition leader engaging in a constructive conversation on British business, is to raise the level of debate. The Liberal Democrats are going further and faster towards a sustainable future than any other party. We have a bold vision of reducing net emissions by 100% by 2050, a significantly more ambitious goal than the current legal requirement to reduce emissions by 80%. Sweden has pledged to do it. I do not see why we cannot too. We will work towards limiting the global temperature rise of 1.5 degrees rather than 2 degrees. We need a sweeping programme of investment and reform on a level never seen before. We are putting together a plan with the help of experts to show exactly how that ambition will be achieved. A Liberal Democrat roadmap to a zero carbon Britain, led by our energy and climate change spokesperson, Lynn Featherstone. It will focus not just on energy sources, but on how all businesses can be sustainable and help to meet our targets, reforming agriculture and land use, boosting natural protection such as peat and forestry, electrifying transport, developing smart technology and advancing the circular economy, addressing the need for change in our homes and heating, and using the financial sector to promote clean industry, including through better disclosure of climate risk. It is clear that to deliver ambitious change, we have got to invest. Not picking winners by prejudice, but supporting a range of new technologies to grow and develop. So we would set up a British Infrastructure Development Bank to fund our infrastructure of the future, the development of the nation, with sustainability principles built into it, with people who understand the issues running it. An initial £5 billion of public money to support clean infrastructure projects, primarily in energy and housing. Public money funding public goods, leveraging in private money to deliver the scale of investment that we need. Building infrastructure now that locks us into reliance on fossil fuels in 40 years' time and does not adequately protect us from future flooding is madness, and it will cost us. I've seen what happens in my own communities in Cumbria when infrastructure fails and in its resilience, and it causes enormous flooding. The homes and businesses devastated as a consequence is unimaginable, though I saw it by my own eyes, and people recovering still 16 months after those floods. Yet there is still no strategic thinking about this from the government. The government has a national infrastructure plan that is unrelated to its industrial strategy and unconnected with the science and technology innovators in Britain's world-class universities. But our investment would set us up for the future through a long-term plan. Energy efficiency would be a priority, tackling our leaky homes which drive up bills and building new homes which are fit for the future. Carbon capture and storage will be given a chance to develop, and the pooled projects in North Yorkshire and Aberdeenshire given the green light. Research into battery storage will be sped up. Renewables companies would be empowered to scale up and to innovate. Alternatives for heating our homes must be developed which do not rely on fossil fuels. Like the BRE project that I looked at yesterday near Watford. Homes that are not just carbon-free, but completely bill-free. Now, our ambitious long-term plan would also give the immediate go-ahead to the world's first tidal lagoon at Swansea Bay, and a commitment to a whole programme of tidal lagoons on Britain's shores, up to 10 over the next 2 decades, including at Cardiff, Colwyn Bay, Newport and Morecambe Bay. This would generate over 34,000 jobs in Wales alone, and create opportunities for hundreds of businesses in the supply chain. Tidal lagoons are not a one-stop solution, but nevertheless have a key role to play in a low-carbon economy using technology that is already tried and tested. They will provide extremely reliable and consistent energy for at least 120 years each. Because while the sun is not always shining and the wind is not always blowing, the tides are always in motion. And tidal lagoons alone could provide up to 10% of our future electricity needs, as well as further benefits of flood protection and regeneration of coastal areas. There will be much to learn from building the first lagoon to develop the next. But this ambitious programme is utterly achievable. A tidal lagoon authority should be set up immediately to research the best locations and to ensure delivery. Moving towards a new clean economy means taking bold policy decisions which encourage innovation and give entrepreneurism a chance. Our economy also requires a rapid transition to electric vehicles to reduce emissions and tackle the immediate threat of air pollution, which causes 40,000 early deaths a year in the United Kingdom alone. Britain should become a global leader in ultra-low emission vehicles, providing not just grant incentives, but tackling installation of charge points. We would introduce universally compatible charging points to make it easier for drivers and incentivise demand, helping urban motorists, not just motorway drivers. Some areas of our economy are harder to decarbonise than others. Improvements in transport are within reach and we must push forward with ambitious strides. We need an immediate go-ahead of the much-delayed rail electrification programme. Now, there is a lot of defeatist and apocalyptic rhetoric around climate change. It kind of goes with the territory, but it doesn't help us. Humankind created climate change, and it therefore stands to reason that humankind can solve it. But if we are really going to do this, then preaching earnest words to the converted simply will not cut it. If we actually want to win this battle, then we need to prepare to inspire the British people to make it their collective patriotic mission to make this fight their own. And that is why I thought I'd start here at a think tank talking to experts, many of whom indeed were the trailblazers of the multi-use Hessian bag. But seriously, it means moving away from the language of green and sustainable and speaking in terms of jobs, prosperity, self-sufficiency and exporting to the world. Somebody needs to lead. Somebody needs to push forward a vision of a new clean economy that will make us prosperous as well as it being the right thing to do. Someone needs to give voice to the wealth of expertise and entrepreneurism of those who really understand this industry, like those of you in this room. And so we will. We will. Just as we are the only real opposition to this government over Brexit and over the underfunding of our NHS, so we will be on growing our new clean economy. To those who are working on the ground, we will fight your corner in Westminster and elsewhere. Let us work together to make our economy clean, prosperous and resilient to thrive, not just to survive in the decades to come. Let's choose to make this a patriotic, joyful, collective national endeavour, united in our ambition, Victorian in scale, in our can-do attitude. Let's make sure that Britain's future generations look back on ours with pride. Thank you.